In this section of the training, we are going to see how to use a VBA code to carry information from our sales invoice and drop it into our sales track. In the previous video, we already saw how to automate our stock card. So here we have to automate our sales invoice so that our stock card should automatically collect information from our sales track. So how do we do that? We are going to start by creating a button that we will click. We are going to do this with just one click. With just one click, we are going to carry all the informations from the sales invoice to the sales track. So let me remove this information. Let me just change the color of the table for our invoice. So if I just allow it to have no color like this, and I'm going to remove the grid lines. I come on view and I remove these grid lines. So for this table so what I can do is that I can give it some borders. So I can just give it borders like this. So I give some borders here, same here, same here. Alright, then I give some other borders here. So this looks much more better. So I'm going to create a button. So for that, I go to developer and I click on I look for a button, I insert a button. So we are going to place that button somewhere around here. So now they will ask us to, when I finish drawing the button, they will ask us if we want to record a macro or if we want to write a VBA code. So actually I could do this, or I could first of all go and write my code. So I'll better just put the button here. I'll go and write the code later. So I'll just edit what is in this button, and I'm going to write inside validate invoice. I'm going to write here validate. So validate invoice. So I cannot yet click anything here because there's no macro affected to it. So I'll come to my Visual Basic for application in order to write my code. So first of all, I have to be in the developer tab. I come on Visual Basic for application, or I press Alt plus F11 on my keyboard. So when I click on this is where it takes me. So you can see here the different sheets which have been created throughout the work. So this is where I'm supposed to code, but it's not yet open. I'm going to create what we call a module. A module is just a place where I can write a code and affect it to a button. So I'm going to write a code here, then later on affect it to the button I created in my Excel worksheet. So I'm going to create a module, and you can see the module has appeared here. The coding area has appeared here. So like we saw in the section for VBA, we had an introductory part to VBA. Every code starts with a sub. So I'm going to write here sub, and then I'm going to put the title of my code. So the title of my code is going to be let me say invoice validation. So when I'm done with the code, with the name of the code, I open and close bracket. So I open and close bracket, then I press enter. So when I press enter, you can see subcode appears. So n sub appears. So this is where I'm going to be writing my code. So the very first thing I want to do here is to check whether there is information in my invoice. I should just make a validation in my invoice if and only if there is information in the invoice. Like for example, if I get here to my Excel sheet, so I'm going to make a condition to say that if there is actually data, like if there is an article in the list, yes, it can go ahead. If not, if there's actually nothing here as description, so nothing should happen. So I get back to my code interface. I'm going to use an if function here. So I will say if I'm going to denote where it's going to be. So I'm going to say if sheets I open bracket in this sheet invoice dot range, so in cell E13. So if in this sheet invoice cell E13, so I'm going to specify sheet invoice range E13 is equal to nothing, meaning if there's nothing inside, is equal to nothing. Then so if there's nothing in this cell in this sheet invoice, if there's nothing there, then I click on enter. So before I forget, let me just put the end if. For every if there should be an end if, right? For every if there should be an end if. So if this sheet's invoice.range E13 is equal to nothing, then I want a message to appear. I want a message to tell us that please enter information in the invoice. So I'm going to use a message box to say, okay, to say please be inverted commas open and close. So should in case there's nothing here, this message will appear. So let's try this out. So actually there's nothing in this cell, so it will say please enter information in the invoice. So let's go to the Excel sheet and let's, for example, put information here. So when I come to my code, when I play the code, you see nothing happens because there's actually something in cell E13. But if I remove this information from here and I come back to the code, I play this, you can see it is verified. Please enter information in the invoice. So this is my if function. This is what I want to test. Else, should in case then there is something in the in cell E13, what should happen? We have already said what should happen should in case there is nothing. Now should in case there is something, what should happen? What I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a loop. So what is a loop? Is a repeated action, something that happens repeatedly for a range of cells. So I'm going to say for each item, I'm going to say for each item in I'm going to say for each item in this area, in the whole of this area from C13 to C27. So for each element here, I'm going to check in terms of if something appears here. So if there's anything here, I would like to, for example, carry information from this table, from this invoice to the sales track. So if I come back here and I say for each item in So I'm going to copy this cell reference for me not to waste time writing it again. So for each item in sheets, invoice.range, this is going to be from range C13 to C27. So for each item in C13 to C37 of our invoice, what do I want to do? I want to create a loop. Like I said, I want to create a loop which is going to carry the information from sheet X, or so from sheet invoice to the sheet of sales track. So here I'm going to press enter. So if it's equal to nothing, we should do nothing. What we are trying to do here is, should in case in this range of cells, so I said for each item in this range of cells from C13, sorry, this is then from C13 to C27, if there is a line which has nothing, then I'm just not going to do anything. So let me just put a comment here. I'll put a comment here that we do nothing. Meaning, should in case we come to this line, we come in the between C13 to C11, because this is where we are going to be imputing data, and we would like to carry informations, only informations from this range or from this table, if and only if there's actually information. Meaning, we don't just want to carry empty cells. You want to carry uniquely cells that has data. So it is empirical for us to notify Excel that it should carry information uniquely when there is something here. Remember that each time we make if we make a selection here, it automatically gives us a number here. So each time there is a number here, it means there is actually something at the level of the description. So if there is a cell here that contains data, good. If there is no data inside, then we should not do anything to that cell. So I'll come back to this, and so it should do nothing. So this is a comment, it should do nothing else, meaning if there is actually something inside, if there is actually something in this cell, what should happen? So I'm going to give a comment here to say we carry information. So I put the apostrophe, then I say we carry information. So in the previous video, we put apostrophe to write a comment. So comments will just help us to know what we were doing at a particular level. So should in case the item there's nothing in the lines, nothing should happen. But else, should in case there's something in these lines, what should happen? So I'm going to create a two lines which are to do two specific things. The first line, which is going to be the line at the level of the sales track. The macro, in the previous video we saw how to record a macro, and what a macro would do is that it will just copy information from here and will come and paste at the level of the sales track. But what we want to do this time around is that, should in case there's already an information, like for example here, it should not just come and paste it here. It should jump and get to the next line. It should get to the next line and input the new information. So if today we make an invoice, the information should come down. Then the next invoice, the information should go down, and so on. So it should not just come and be replacing the same invoice, the same information that we pasted the previous time. So this is what we actually want to do. We want to automate something like that. So what we are going to say, I'm going to create a line. So I'm going to create a variable that I'm going to call line A. Okay, line A. So line A will be equals to, it's going to be equals to sheet sales track. It's going to be sheet sales track the range C, for example, C 1 million. When I say C 1 million here, I simply imply that it should go in C. This is C. This is column C, but C 1 million, it should go right down to C 1 million. C 1 million. So this is what we are going to do. We are going to create a line or a variable which is going to be line A. It should make a calculation. It should go to sheet sales track and the range C 1 million. Then you can see there's a function here, or there's a syntax here called nxlup dot row, meaning it should go to C 1 million, then come to the last line up. XNL up means the last line up, meaning it will come and check if there's data here, then it will come to this last line up, which is this one. This is the last line that contains data. Then it will do +1 and come to the next line. So this is just the significance of this code. It will get to the last line, then it will do +1. So what we are going to create next is another variable. I'm going to call it line B. I'm going to call it line B. So line B is going to be equal to item dot row. So we'll soon see what this line B is all about. Now, what we want to do actually is to carry informations, right? To carry informations from our invoice to the sales track. So which informations are we going to be carrying? We're going to be carrying the item code, the description, the quantity, and the amounts, as well as the date and the invoice number. So in our sales track, we already have all of them. We want to be carrying the invoice number. So this is invoice number. It means that the invoice number here is going to be sheet invoice dot range D4, because this is where the invoice number is going to stand. So this cell is going to be year in, because it represents the invoice number. So what we are going to do is I'll come down here in our code, and I will say sheets. So we are talking about what sheet sales track is going to be. Sheets sales track dot range. So where is the invoice number located in sheet sales track? If we get to our Excel sheet, the invoice number here is located in column C. It's located in column C. So I'm going to say sheet sales track dot range column C and the last line, because if I just say C3 or C5, next time you just go and paste it back on C5. but I have created a variable here which will look for the last line up. So I'm going to say C and last line up, which is the line A that I created. Line A. So I close bracket. So this line dot value, meaning the value of this line, the value of this line is going to be sheet invoice sheet invoice dot range. So where is the invoice number in our invoice sheet? It is in D4. So this cell here, C5, is going to be D4. So I want to carry from here and bring it in the sales track in C5. So here we're talking about D4. So I come back to my code and I say it's going to be sheets invoice.range D4. So I close bracket, dot value. So after getting our invoice number, we equally want to get the date. So from here, I'll just have to copy this. I'll copy this as many times as possible so that we can just be replacing. So I'm going to copy this down. I'm just copying this same thing down so that the next one is going to be after C. After column C is column D, E, F, and so on. So in column D, we want to be carrying the date from our sales invoice, which is in H4. So from here, we're going to say that sheet sales track dot, we are no more in C, we are now in D. Then we will go from D to E. Then from E, we'll go to F. From F, we'll go to G. From G, we'll go to H. So, is there any other one in our sales track? This column H, there will be I, there will be J and K. So I still have to copy 3 of them. So I'll put 3 of them again. Okay. So this one is I. Then we have G and K. We have J. Here we have K. So this is it. We want then sheet sales track dot range D and the last line dot value to be equal to the date. So we can use a function or a syntax in Excel called cdate. So cdate is going to give us the date as at today. So I just say equals to cdate. So I'll say cdate, then I open bracket. So it's a function. So I'm going to say noun. So I want the date of the time where the transaction is going on to appear there. So I will say noun and open bracket and close. Then I close the bracket for the cdate. So that's what is going to appear for in sheets in the place of the date. So E, let's come and check what E is all about. E is going to be the customer's name, and the customer's name in our invoice here is located in in the cell G7. So simply what I'll do is that I'll get to my code and I'll say it is equal to, I'm going to copy this. So it's going to be in cell G7. So instead of D4, I'm going to change this to G7. So the next one here we'll have F. So in our sales track, F is the item code. So now for the item code, we can see that from here in our invoice, we can have item codes appearing many times depending on the number of product we have in our invoice, which all depends on how many products our customer is taking. So at this level, it can be any line. It can be many lines in this our Excel sales invoice sheet. That is why I here created a line called line B, which is item row. So it's going to come in this our sales invoice and look at the number of items which are in the rows, carry only those who have information and bring in the sales track. So how are we going to do that? So the cell or column F and the last line is going to be equal to, instead of allowing it, for example, just selecting, for example, item code here is in column D. Instead of just selecting column D13, column D13, it will just carry just if there is information in D13. But one that if there's any information here, it should just carry it automatically. So when I get to my Visual Basic Code, I'm going to say D and the last line which will contain the item row. So it's going to be line B. Line B. Okay, so it's going to be D and the last line all the lines in line B, which is going to be in here. So all the lines that will contain data, it will carry it and come and put in the sales track at the level of the item name in column F. So we will do the same thing for the description. It will carry all of them. We'll do the same thing for quantity. We do the same thing for the unit prices. So when I get here in my Visual Basic, this I'll start by saying equals to this, equals to this. So in a cell G, we want the description, and the description in our invoice, description in our invoice is going to be column E. So this is where the description is found. So when I get here, I'm going to say, instead of D4, I'll just say E and line B, so that it should call all the informations in the invoice. So H is going to be here the unit, the quantities, and the quantities in our invoice here is in column F. So if it's in column F, then this guy is going to be F and line B. Okay, so this is going to be the same thing for the next one in our sales track, which is I. I is going to be the unit price, and it will equally have to calculate the amount. So there are still two lists here to carry. We have I, which is the unit price, and the unit price here is found in column J. So I get here I is going to be column J and line B. So this is and line B. Okay, so this was I. The next one in the sales track is J, which is the amount, and the J in our invoice here is in meaning the amount is in column H. So I get here, I say equal to, I add another line, but it's going to be in cell 8. It's going to be 8. So here we're talking about H. So it's going to be H and line B. So the next one here is the next one after J is K, which is a comment, and we're going to work on the comment. So for the comment, we are going to make it in such a way that we have a means of payment here, for example. So if I have, for example, here a means of payment, so and I want it to be in a drop down list here, either by cash or by bank. So I can come here, I come on data validation, and I choose a list. So should in case I want to create a list when I don't actually have a list, a database in the machine, I'm just going to put, for example, cash, comma, bank. So I'll just take OK, and you see, sorry, I'm supposed to do cash, and I put instead semicolon. So I guess this is going to give. So we can select either semicolon or what. Now, at the level of the comment, we are going to give a description. We're going to say this cell, meaning K, I think it's K. In our sales track, it is cell K. Okay. So K is going to be a sentence, meaning a comment which will say, I'm going to put it in inverted commas open, being sales by. So it would decide now, or the comment will say being sales depending on what was the means of payment, if was it by cash or by bank. So I want to come and carry the information which is here in L6. So it's going to be being sales of goods in what is in L6. So I get back to the code, being sales of goods. I put my inverted commas close. Then I want to join them. I want to join two values. I want to join this sentence of being sales by and the value which is going to be in our Excel sheet depending on the means of payment, which is sheet invoice dot range. I think it's let's check the range. It is range L6. Range L6. L6.value. So this is what it's going to do. There's an and here. It's going to combine being sales by and the value which is in our Excel sheet at this level. So from here we have the N if, then we have remember that we were all in a loop. All this is in a loop which is for every item in sheet invoice, which is in range C13 to C27. Given that it was verified that there is something in the first cell, it should carry information. So when we are done with the loop or with the for every for ends with a next. Just like every if ends with an N if, a for, like a loop for ends with a next. Since here we're talking of for each item, so it's going to be next item. So what will happen? It will come and look at the first line in our sales invoice, carry information, get to the next line and to the next line and to the next line, which is free. So that is what it's going to be doing. Let's try this code to see whether it is actually functioning. So if I play the code, for example, okay, these are errors. They will say block F without N, if without N if. So it means we started an if function and we did not conclude it with an N if. So this is if, this is another if, this is the N if, then there is not the other N if. So I'm going to put N if here. So let's play this. Okay, they will say please enter information in the worksheet. So for us to easily play this, we'll be using this button. So we'll assign the code we have been writing in this button. So I'll right click on the button and I say assign macro. So this is the code we have been writing. So I take OK. So next time when I click on it, it is the code that is running. So should in case there is information here inside, when I click on the code, okay, debug means there's an error somewhere and we have to correct the error. We have to find out where the error is and we try and correct it. So all right, there is a problem here. Okay, so the inverted commas open and close, the inverted commas is supposed to just be on the letter of the column. So it should not enclose it here. So I'll just put the inverted commas close here. D, it's supposed to be here, not closing with the line, just here, not closing with the line. So I'm just going to correct this all through. I'll put the inverted commas close instead on F or on J or on H. So when I do that all through, let me try and run it back. So I will stop all, then I'll go back to my Excel sheet. I click on the button. So when I click on it, I come to the sales track. You realize that the information from our invoice has been carried to the sales track. You can see the date, you can see the customer's name, you can see the customer's code, the description, and so on. So here in the invoice, let's say yes, I'm putting some figures in terms of quantity. So when I click on validate, you won't see anything because it's still here. But when I get to the sales track, you can see we had HP computer here and a Dell computer quantity to unit price amount. So in the sales track, you can see how all these things has been carried from here to this the sales track, and the means of payment being sales by bank, because actually here it is by bank. So if here I change and I put cash, so and I validate, I come to sales track, you see has added a new line two new lines for this product, and he has given the sales track, the sales by cash. Now I can see here that there's one information which is missing, the unit price, and it is in column I. So I'll just go and check in my code what has happened to column I. So column I, it's equals to this. It's invoice.j.line. So when I look at it, I realize that I was putting instead J. Meanwhile, in the Excel sheet, the unit price is in G. So that's where the mistake is. So I'll just go and correct it and instead put G. Okay, so I come to my Excel sheet and I run it again. So when I run it, you can see it is coming now with the unit prices. It has given it with the unit price. So it's adding a new line each time I validate. So if I go to the invoice, I add, for example, a new item, let's say iPhone 8, and I put the quantity to be, for example, 4. So when I validate in my sales track, you can see the new item iPhone 4 came here. So the sales track is just keeping track of all the sales. But yet, you can realize that we have, after the validation, we still have the same products here, and nothing is improving, nothing is changing. Normally, after the validation of one invoice, all this information should be deleted, and it should permit us to get to the next customer, meaning this worksheet or this invoice should be completely empty to permit me to get to the next customer and to the next invoice. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to add in my code that after it copies this information and puts it in the sales track, it should equally delete the informations that are here, and it should permit me to get to the next invoice. So what I will do is that, just like we saw in the previous video, we saw how to use the VBA code and, for example, how to delete elements in a VBA code with the VBA. You know, from our Excel worksheet, the only areas that we can delete in this invoice is just the description and the quantity. So if I delete, for example, description and quantity, you see everything goes. So basically, this is what I'm going to delete. So if I come to my worksheet, so before ending the if function, before ending the condition, I'm going to ask VBA to delete this range of cells. So I'm going to say sheet invoice dot range sheet invoice dot range. Here we have it to be range E to F13 to F27. So it's this area that I want to delete, from E13 to F27. So if I delete this area, nothing will happen to me. No, my formulas will not go off. E13 to F27. E13 to F37, F27. Alright, so this area, I'll say dot clear content. So dot clear content. So the clear content was not well written. Okay, so I want to clear the content here. What other thing do I want to do after the validation? So when it clears the content, I would like the invoice number to appear here. So here is just I'm just the one who made this tool, but normally the invoice number should be changing and incrementing alone. So I'll create a place where this invoice is going to be changing the loan and coming back here. So what I will do is that I'll come to data. It's just like data is just a place where I'll create a database, and I'll create invoice number. Okay, so yeah, what I will have is I will have a fixed a fixed uh, a fixed part of the invoice number. So I want the invoice number to show invoice dash number, something like this. Okay, I want this part to always be there. Then I want that it should get a number. It should get a number that I'm going to call here. I'm going to put here 0 for now because I'm considering that is practically no invoice number. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine both of them. I'm going to combine this cell and this cell. So in the course of our training, we saw how to combine two values with the concatenate function or with the and sign. So I will say here equals to this and this. I could just do this. So you will see it's going to do invoice number this. So when I change, for example, to 4, you will see it will give me invoice number 4. So this is how it's going to look like. So if I put here 0, it will give invoice number 0. So if I want, for example, to make this my invoice number to have a thousands of 0 before having the invoice number. So let me try and put 1 here. So here in our function, I'll not just add both of them, but I'm going to use a function here called text. Let's try it here first of all. If I say equals to text, so text will combine two values in a format. We combine a value with a format of the value. So the value is going to be 1 and the format is going to have like 5 zeros. So I want to put 5 zeros, or let me say 7 zeros, something like this. When I close bracket and take enter, so it combines this and adds 1 on it. So generally invoice numbers have a number of thousands besides. So I'm just going to come here. I will say and text. So I take the invoice number, then I give it a format with a number of zeros. So I close bracket, and so it's better like this. So if here it is going to 2, you can see the invoice number is getting to 2. So what I would do is that here, let's first allow it to 0. So what I would do is that my invoice number here should be equal to what is showing up in this cell L3. So it should be what is showing up here. So my invoice number is automatically showing this. So it means that if I'm changing from 0 to 1 or to 4, for example, this one is changing to 4, and in my invoice it is equally changing to invoice number 4. So what I'm going to do now is to make in such a way that this number should be incrementing after every invoice which is being validated. So I'll allow it to 0. I'll come to my code. Then I'll say it is actually located in sheets data. I'll say sheets data dot range. In which cell it is? It is in cell K4. In cell K4 dot range K4 dot value will be equal to, so it's going to be equal to this same thing plus 1. So cell K4 is going to be K4 plus 1, meaning if this 2, it will be 2 plus 1, giving us 3. So I'll say plus 1. Okay, it means that it will automatically be incrementing. So let's go to our code and try this out. So if I come here, if I click on validate, can you see? It has deleted all the informations in our worksheet, and in our sales track, you can see that it has given all those informations in our sales track, as well as the invoice number now is no more 0, it is 1. So if I click once again, they will say please enter information in the invoice, because actually there's no information here. But if there's information here, there's quantity. When I click on OK, it will delete this and go to invoice number 2. Our sales track has the information, our data. You can see that here it is incrementing. So this is how we could create an invoice number which is incrementing, like increasing time and over. So the next thing I want to do is I want to make in such a way that after I validate the invoice, the console should be directly on cell E13 to permit me to select the next product. So if I design this like this, so I'll come to my code and I'll say sheets invoice.e13. So this is what I want to write in. So the last thing that should happen, so invoice.e13 dot select. So I want to select cell E13 after everything. So if I come back to my code, E13 is here. So when I'm here, I click on, it does not go, and if there's actually something in here, when I click on validate, it will validate, and after everything it will come and stand on E13, waiting for me to get to the next invoice. When I validate, it stands on E13. You see the invoice number is incrementing. So this is how easy it is to create or to automate our invoice, our sales invoice, to get track in the sales track. And you can see our stock card is automatically collecting information and giving us the stock available, collecting information, and so on. So this is just how beautiful it is. In the next video, we're going to see how to convert this our sales invoice into a PDF which can be sent to customer, and which is going to be saved in our machine. So see you in the next video.